Hey guys, Besa Gordon here, and time for another episode of Back2Besa. This time around, we're talking about something that you guys know I love all too much, and of course that is wrestling. I saw this amazing wrestling prodigy, I want to say about 2 years ago over at Washington Hall while he was wrestling for Defy. And now he has just skyrocketed, and I'm so proud of him. I think he might have still been about 16 at the time. Now he is 18, kicking all kinds of you-know-what over at AEW. Today, we are talking with none other than Nick Wayne.
What's up? How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, don't you turn it red over there.
I'm excited to be here. It's nice.
Absolutely, I'm excited to talk with you. Like the first time that I actually saw you wrestling over at Defy, it was actually my first time getting back into wrestling. You know, I grew up watching wrestling like a lot of people, and then I kind of fell out of it. My reason for falling out is that, you know, Raw and WWE, like they kind of like switched, and I was like, I don't have that cable channel right about now. The storylines aren't making sense, so forget it. But when I did come to Defy and also like watching yourself wrestle, it just really reignited my passion for wrestling. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Now let's start like from the beginning. You've been wrestling since you've basically been able to walk.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So growing up, my dad was a professional wrestler. He's been a professional wrestler for over 30 years now. My father named Buddy Wayne. He had a wrestling school growing up when I was a kid. So growing up, I was always watching the students train, you know, watching him train these guys and him going and doing shows. And when that wasn't going on, there was always some type of wrestling going on the TV or a tablet or something. So everywhere I looked, there was some type of professional wrestling. And then I finally, I was getting in the ring with him and whatnot when I was a kid, you know, kind of messing around with the students. But then I started taking it serious when I was about 9 years old. I started training with all the students. You know, I got my knee pads, I got my first pair of shoes. So yeah, I started training when I was 9. Then I eventually went to have my first match when I was 12 in Canada. And I spent the first 2 years of my career in Canada because at the time, you weren't allowed to wrestle in the state of Washington until you were 18 because you had to have a wrestling license. To get the license, you had to be 18.
Oh, wow.
And then eventually, this promotion in Everett, Washington, they took the risk and they went to the licensing and they were like, yo, we got this kid. His dad's been like a legend around here. They knew my dad. They're like, oh, we know Buddy Wayne, let his kid wrestle. So they put me on when I was like 14 and that kind of started a lot of the stuff in America. That was like my very first step in America. And then, you know, kind of COVID happened and whatnot. Before that, it was just wrestling in Pacific Northwest. Coming back from COVID, picking up again in the Northwest. And then eventually I popped off and I started going to LA and Chicago and Detroit and getting myself onto the East Coast and then eventually trying to get onto these bigger independents, which I eventually ended up doing throughout 15, 16, 17, and then now 18. And then when I was presented a contract when I was 16 on the independents as well at Defy, they presented me this contract to AEW and they said, whenever you turn 18, you know, this is the time. So it was basically like an apprenticeship when I was 16 and a half. So I had about like a year and a half left on the independents until I went to AEW. So just like a crazy ride it's been so far, you know, being 9 years in the business, close to a decade at only 18. It sounds crazy to say, you know, it sounds unreal to say, but I'm very blessed for all the things that I've gotten to do at my young age. I got to travel internationally. I got like 6 different countries I've wrestled in so far. So I'm blessed to got the opportunities that I did and wrestle the people I've got to wrestle and do the things I got to do at such a young age. You know, I couldn't get there without the people that helped me get there.
You know what's crazy about that, and I'm wondering if this ever dawned on you, but it almost seems like you've made it to where people under 18 can actually wrestle. Yeah. Like you coming in with your dad being who he is, they were like, yeah, let's figure this out. And now it's created a space for younger people to actually come out and wrestle. Like, what does that feel like for you?
It's crazy, you know, I like to maybe it's a possible generation starter. You know, I know there's this Twitter page of this guy. He has a classroom full of his students and they put on wrestling matches and the kids, you know, they react to the matches and they're going crazy. They all love wrestling. And he messages me and he tells me, he's like, my students say they want to be the next Nick Wayne. And I'm like, man, I'm only 18. You know, I'm like the next Nick Wayne. I'm like, it's crazy. These kids are like 6, 7, 8 years old, you know, but it feels so amazing to feel that I may be possibly opening the doors to a new generation. And I feel like maybe kids younger that look at me, they're like, he's 18, he's close to my age and he's doing it. That means I can do it.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's what I want ultimately, is I want kids to feel as if they can do whatever they put their mind to. You know, they have a dream, you can achieve it.
Absolutely. So, like, you know, I know that everyone calls you the prodigy, but it's almost as if you were born and this path was made for you. Like, I'm not saying that there might not have been another option, but this option genuinely makes the most sense for your life. Like, everything was like kind of paved for you perfectly, which is really dope.
Yes, super. Yeah, like I said, I couldn't have gotten there without the people that were there with me this entire time, the people that I met along the way.
Now, let me ask you this: what was it like for you wrestling at Defy that first day you got there?
So it was crazy because, so I debuted there when I was 16. It was August of 2021. But before that, Defy was a thing before that. The shows were always 21 plus, always. But I was maybe 13, 14 years old, sneaking into these shows and sitting in the corner, you know, watching all these shows. And I would watch these guys and I would be introduced to new guys on the independents, guys like Swerve, guys like Leo Rush, you know, and I would look up to these guys and then I'd look into their work and see all the stuff they've done in the past. And then, of course, now to see the things that they've done. And then becoming rivals with these guys and, you know, becoming close friends with these guys. It was an amazing thing to see. But kind of seeing where Defy started, always at Washington Hall, sometimes at Temple Theater in Tacoma, just seeing what they started at compared to what they are now is unreal. But it was always a goal of mine, and I said I've always wanted to wrestle at Defy. But of course, like I said earlier, to get the wrestling license, you had to be 18.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here at 13, and I'm like, man, I got 5 years till I can be here. And then eventually when I started popping off, and like that other promotion, they took the chance with me when I was 14, you know, that kind of opened the doors for Defy. They're like, oh, really, it's possible for him now. After that, COVID happened, but then we come back, they're like, oh, so it's possible. Yes, it's possible. All right, let's see what we can do. So they open the doors, and then I changed the rules at Defy from 21 plus shows to now 16 plus because of me. So walking through the curtain was like just, I've been waiting for this for years, you know. I've been seeing this as like the biggest show in the Pacific Northwest. It's like 40 minutes from my house. You know, I watch all these shows, and it was just like, it was a long time coming, and eventually I burst through the curtain, and the reaction was just crazy. You know, I wasn't even really on that level yet. Like I really wasn't even like that. But just the reaction they gave me, it felt like you're home. You know, it felt like watching all these people, it was like two big open arms. They're like, welcome, you know? And it was an unreal feeling. And that's when the chant started, the Nick fucking Wayne chants. You know, it started before the bell even rung. And I was like, wow, I'm like, so this is what it is. You know, this is what it's like. And then I continue, you know, do the match, the ovations, and the crowd are just going crazy. You know, please come back. I've actually come back the next night and then continue to come for every show, and then eventually achieve these amazing things at Defy. Wrestle people that I idolized, the people that I looked up to and grew up watching, and then eventually achieving the Defy World Champion. You know, I eventually got to the top at Defy, and it's just such an amazing feeling to be able to achieve those things at a place that I grew up literally at, you know, and watching. So I'm very blessed to be able to do those things and to have the defiance, which is what we call the crowd at Defy, with me. You know, it kind of feels like I'm one with them. When I take a step forward, they're taking a step with me.
I think that when it comes to Defy and the actual energy that comes out from the defiance, it's really hard to describe. Like, I don't know if like how you feel about it. Like, I actually did the ring announcing when the day that they did like the all women's match, right?
I remember, yeah.
It was, and the crowd in there, like I did it, you know, sitting in my seat just watching, but to actually go in the ring, like the energy is just so, like, I can't describe the feeling that you get when you are in there and they are just screaming and cheering.
Seriously, yeah. It's
Like,
an unmatched feeling.
Would you say that the feeling for Defy when you're there is even different than the AEW crowds? And I understand like the AEW crowds are always bigger, but like the Defiance is like, it's like your family.
Yeah, it's different, you know? It's also like, you gotta think about setting as well, you know? AEW, you're in a big arena, it's a very big space full of thousands. Washington Hall is kind of, it's a smaller place, it's a hall, you know, but we're packing 750, 800 people wall to wall, you know? So it's like the sound it's different. It's in a smaller area, so, you know, that helps with it. But it's just, the energy there is different, like you said. You know, like if you ever been to a concert and just the music and the overall people, like the sound is so loud, your ears start buzzing.
Yeah.
You know, imagine that, but just for an ovation of what you are doing. You know, when it gets to the point where the crowd is so loud and they're cheering you so loud, your ears are starting to buzz. It's like, that's how you know this is just different. You know, it's like every time I've ever gotten to work for Defy, it's just the energy is unmatched. I say that every time. It's unmatched. It doesn't compare to nothing against it, like, but like arenas full of thousands, it's just the sound is different. You know, I've heard arenas go crazy as well, but this sound of the Defiance is just different. And then people that have been there can say the same.
Yeah, and then when they start stumping and like the
Yeah.
hands start hitting
Yeah.
like the thing.
Yeah, the building's shaking.
It's like a freaking thunderstorm goes off in there.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about, you know, once you turned 18, you ended up going to AEW, and I definitely did a happy dance for you that day.
Thank you. Thank you.
The day that you debuted at AEW, let's talk about what went into getting ready for that day.
Let's just get into it. I almost didn't make it.
Wow!
Yeah, I almost didn't make it. So it was in a very small town in Canada. So to travel there, you had to make a connection through like Vancouver or like Calgary or something. And I remember our original flight got delayed, which made the layover shorter and eventually missed the layover. You know, I'm sprinting to the gate to get to this next flight.
Could your team keep up with you?
Yeah. I'm sprinting to get to this next flight and the doors are closed. There's no one there. They're like, we can't let you on. I'm like, it's so hard to explain to them. You know, it's like, I'm on TV tomorrow. You know, it's so hard to explain, but it's like, you know how they be. It's like, there's nothing we can do. The doors are closed. The plane's about to take off. It's like, we can't, you know, I'm like, imagine if this 1.5 year long wait just couldn't happen.
All over a door.
Yes, seriously. But eventually, you know, you get the flight rebooked, had to fly to wherever, I was in Calgary, had to fly back to Vancouver, then to there. But the wait, like that entire week was like, I got more nervous every day. And as the days were going by, I was like, it's not even the day of the show. You know, we're like 5 days before the show and I'm still so nervous. But I like to think of nerves as like you care. You know, like when you're nervous, it means you really care. And this is something that I've been waiting for 1.5 years now since I was presented the contract. So I just felt like this entire 1.5 years was like, I'm waiting, but everyone else is waiting as well. Everyone's been waiting for me to get on that stage. So like, all right, now's the time, you know? And then building up to that, there was video packages presenting me. You know, these people that have never heard of me before, they're seeing these video packages. They're like, what's this kid all about? You know, so they want to tune in and they want to see what I'm about. So that I just felt like the most pressure. You know, I was like, I gotta look as fly as I can. You know, I gotta have new gear. I gotta have a nice tan. You know, I gotta look as best as I can. I gotta put on the best match. You know, and I like to think that I gave it. I know I gave it my all, but I like to think that I gave off a great first impression. You know, with being where I am now in AEW and seeing the things that I've kind of got to achieve so far, I like to think that I almost hit a home run. You know, so it's that entire buildup was just like, you know, this is it. You know, all this time is like everything you've done, like this is it. So yeah, I like to think I did a good job, you know. But yeah, it was the most, like the biggest anticipated week leading up to the day of my life.
I'm curious to know, like, so when you came out and you walked down that ramp, there's a moment where you actually just stop.
Yeah.
And it looked like you were really like surprised, but also taking in the moment. What was really going through your head at that time? Because you can feel it coming off of the screen.
Yeah. It was absolutely taking the moment. You know, a lot of people told me out there, they're like, you know, there's only one first time. There really is. There's only one first time. So like, just take it in, bro. You know, like stop and smell the roses. People tell me that all the time, stop and smell the roses. But what really hit me is whoever told me there's only one first time. I'm like, you know, that's right. With everything, you know, your first arena show, your first show period, you know, your first big stadium show, there's only one first one. So I wanted to stop and smell the roses and look at the audience of this full arena and see all the production crew and see this ramp, you know, and all these thousands of people in this huge ring, you know. It's like, I want to take everything in as like, this is your introduction, you know. Everyone at home's watching, all your family's watching, your friends are watching, everyone's rooting you on right now. It's time to knock it out the park. So that was my mentality, is just, you got to take this in, you know. This is for everyone at home.
Now, I'm curious to know, I don't know about anybody else, but you know, some of your relationships and storylines from Defy were able to move over to AEW, especially with a lot of the AEW wrestlers still being part of Defy. One of those was your relationship with Darby Allin, and then also your beef with Swerve. How did that beef even come about? Like, you know, you're this 16, 17-year-old kid from Seattle, he's from Tacoma, and it's almost as if that Seattle versus Tacoma rivalry. Like, is that really where that energy came from?
Somewhat, yes, but I also like to think part of it was because of what I was doing at Defy and kind of how fast I was going up the ranks, you know, like Swerve was there for like years, you know, and he did everything there is to do at Defy, and I feel as if he saw me coming up, and as if he maybe thought like, this is my new competition, you know, because I was going up in the ranks so high there. So I think he just looked at me at competition, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna give him a shot. You know, he gave me his shot, and you know, he beat me. You know, he called out the shot. I accepted it. He beat me. Then you know, it kind of continues. You know, you go your way, I go mine. We'll see each other when we see each other. And eventually, you know, we did. We saw each other in tag matches. We saw each other building up to bigger and better things. Then eventually, he had the Defy champion again. He goes, I'm gonna give you another shot. Well, actually, I wanted the shot. He goes, all right, you want the shot? I'll give it to you. And we ended up having this match. It was my longest match I ever had at the time. I think it was about 36 minutes. You know, he left me in a pool of my own blood, but I walked out with the Defy champion.
I was there that day.
Yes.
That was the day I actually met you.
Yes.
And I like posted the photo and everyone was like, what happened? I was like, you had to be there.
Yes. Seriously.
I could describe it, but you had to be there.
Yes. It was one of my most like hard fought matches ever. But I think that was probably my most like historic and heart-touching moment at Defy, was winning the Defy World Champion. You know, it kind of felt like everyone was winning. You know, it was like, yeah, I won this title, it's over my shoulder, but it's over all of our shoulders, you know? So it kind of felt like that day we all won. And I continued that title reign for as long as I could. But yeah, and then eventually it continues over to AEW. You know, once I beat him for the title, he's like, all right, you want to take my title? We'll take it to the next stage. You know, he told me, your first match in AEW is with me.
So this was like a backstage conversation.
This happened out there right after I beat him for the championship. He got on the microphone and he was like, I know you have a contract awaiting, but when the time is right, once you step in those doors, I'll be the first one there. And then, you know, once we had that match in AEW, my first match, you know, from there, you know, things kind of kick up again. Just like when we had the second match in Defy, it's like, you know, we haven't seen each other in a while, but once we hit the flames, you know, it's like you feel it again. It's like, all right, we're back now. And then eventually, you know, we go into a bigger storyline together, and now we're doing multiple matches. We're going after each other. We're coming for teeth, you know. It's leave each other in pools of blood, you know. We're coming for blood is what it is, really.
Even like that day that he came to, what was it, like the ring at your house?
The wrestling
I was
school,
like,
yeah.
ah!
Yeah, that was an ungodly amount of blood. That was bad.
Yeah,
that was real bad.
I was like, is he okay? Not even gonna, I was worried.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I've never been like, you know, dizzy from blood loss, but that was my first time.
So that was like real blood loss.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if the cameras could be, I got a scar on my forehead.
Oh,
it's a pretty gnarly one, yeah. But
you know, I asked that because there's always that conversation of how real is wrestling?
Yeah.
And I've always said, well, I don't necessarily know how real the storylines are and how real some of the hits are or whatever have you, but those injuries are very real.
Seriously, yeah. It's like hard to say with wrestling, you know, because it's like the damage we're doing to our bodies is real. You know, there's people that have like died in our ring and they died for our sport, and the things that they're willing to do for our sport and to prove that professional wrestling is not fake. You know, and I am one of those people that like to show people wrestling's not fake. You know, I'm here at 18. I got these scars all over my body. You know, I'm damaged at 18. I'm just 18. I'm still like a kid, you know?
Yeah.
But this is like, it's far from fake. You know, the damage we take and what we're willing to do is not fake. But it's hard to tell that to a normal person. You know, a lot of people just, they hear professional wrestling, they hear WWE, first thing they think is, oh, it's fake.
Yeah.
You know, so they instantly, some people just tune out. But if you can show them firsthand, like, yo, we're not playing, you know, like this is a crazy physical toll we're taking on ourselves, then maybe, you know, get some belief in it.
How do you preserve your body during these moments? Or like, you know, if you get super injured, you have like a fight coming up the next day, like how do you, I don't know, is it like an ice bath?
You can, it depends on you. You know, thankfully at AEW we have doctors on site and they're willing to do whatever you want. But recovery, it's kind of all on you, you know, ice baths, massages, chiropractic therapy, whatever you want. But then a lot of it, honestly, is just heart and passion. You know, there's been countless times where I've had like 4 matches in a week, and, you know, I get through the first match and I'm like, dude, I got 2 matches tomorrow. I'm like, how am I gonna do this?
Like, how are we gonna make this work?
Yes, how are we gonna make this work? And eventually, you know, you push through it because you love it. You know, you want to keep going. You want to prove to these people why you are what you are and why you do this. So you push your body past the limit of pain to where I'm willing to do this to make it. I'm willing to do this to prove myself and to show everyone like this is my heart. That's what I think a lot of it is proving like heart and fight in wrestlers, you know, is when we're in there, we're in pain, you know. After the matches, we're in a lot of pain, but we keep pushing for the fans' entertainment and really for our self-respect of ourselves to, you know, prove ourselves, really. It's all to prove yourself.
Wow. Like, I always wonder, because I remember the first time I seen you, I think like your shoulder got dislocated that day.
Yeah, I have a bad shoulder.
And I was like, how did he keep fighting during that?
Yeah, well, actually, I had a bad shoulder. I hurt the other shoulder in that match. It's okay now, but this one.
Has its moments.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about like some things that have happened over at AEW and like your current storylines. First of all, who comes up with these storylines? Is it someone that's in the back, or is it like yourself to where you're like, hey, this is just my life and we just want to kind of play it out?
It depends from which part. Like with what we're doing right now, Christian, really, it's all him. You know, the stuff he does is like, it's all him. He's one of the best to do it. Seriously, he's been doing this for decades. He's done everything there is to do in this business, and he has one of the smartest brains, seriously. And I think he's really underrated in this sport, honestly.
Wow.
So it's all him, you know. He's like, some may say he's at the tail end of his career right now. He wants to go out in the way he wants to go out, so he's gonna do things he wants to do, you know. Like this is his book with blank pages, and someone gave him a pencil, you know. They're like, write it. That's him.
Okay, so speaking of writing it, when you were here in Seattle, last time I saw you, I want to say it was Wrestle Dream over at Climate Pledge. And as I'm in the crowd, already like just gooped by everything that's going on, you turned. And that day I was actually with my friend DJ Trunks, and we're sitting there, we're watching, and it happens, and we were like, why, Nick? Why? Did you know that you were going to have to turn that day when you came in?
It's kind of an instinctive feeling, you know. It's kind of built up thoughts from over time, you know. I kind of felt as if I was being overlooked when I was with Darby, you know. It's kind of felt like all the attention was going to him, and I was kind of just there when he needed it, you know. I was like, I came to AEW for a reason, because I want to show people why I am who I am and what I'm able to do in the ring. And it felt like he was getting all the in-ring time, you know. I'm kind of cheerleading him on, and it's like, it's not what I came here to do, you know, so.
You didn't want to be that little brother.
Nah, you know, he helped me get there, that's one thing, but now it's like, all right, now you got to survive, and I'm surviving now, so I had to do what I had to do, and clearly it worked out for me, so.
What's it been like having like that difference of crowd reaction? Because even like to this day, I still think about that moment, and I'm just like, that was so freaking crazy, and the crowd, like everybody was just like standing there. And it went from obviously people cheering Nick to like now people booing Nick. Like what does that switch feel like? Because it's almost as if you come in one match and everyone's like, yeah, Nick. And then the next day you come out, it's like, oh, we hate you now.
It's all reception, you know, really. It's like when you're getting cheered on, they're cheering you to keep going. They're cheering you to keep fighting. But then when the roles are switched, they're cheering the other person on. You know, they're not really cheering you on. So it's like when you're in one space and they're like, yes, go Nick, you're trying to fight to please them. But now when it's like, I hate you, Nick, you're gonna do the opposite to get them to keep hating you, you know? It's like, now they wanna see this guy get up. Oh, you wanna see him get up? I'm gonna keep him down, basically is what it is. So it's all just like reception, you know? Whatever you show me, I'm gonna give you in here.
It almost feels like it's a matter of, I need you to have a reaction, period.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's almost worse if there's no reaction from the crowd. It's like either get amazing boos or amazing cheers. And if it's just like, you know, somewhere in the middle, it's almost as if you're not getting that feed that you need, because I feel like you still feed off of those boos.
Yeah, I mean, if it's somewhere in the middle, if it's a mix of cheers and boos, you know, I kind of just do whatever I'm feeling, you know, or whichever one outweighs the other. But if there's ever a time, which is not really, but if there's ever a time where there is no reaction, you make them feel a reaction.
You gotta like do something to like make something happen.
Yeah, you make them feel something.
Now, I'm curious to know, as you're building your legacy, because I mean, like you said, you're still 18 years old, but you've been in the game for almost 10 years. So there are people that have only been wrestling for like 3 years. And so you still got like some beat on them, okay? Have you ever thought about taking over the Buddy Wayne Academy in your father's name?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So my dad's wrestling school is, it's still up right now. We still have students training. We have students training here in about like 5-6 hours from now. We run classes every Wednesday and Saturday. So my dad's school has been a thing for over like a decade now. But my dad passed away when I was 11. So now the school currently is being trained by kind of just people like myself and people that have been training with my dad the longest. But eventually, like when the time is right and kind of maybe build the name up a little bit more and financially everything's cool, then maybe I'll make the switch. I feel like it's something my dad would want me to do, because I know he wouldn't want the school to just go to nothing. And I think if I keep building myself to a bigger name, people would want to learn from me, and then I can take over the school and kind of pass on what my dad taught me to the next generation of wrestlers. So it's definitely something that's in my future plans in my career.
And then what happened recently at Defy? Like, you were there on Friday. What went down that day for someone that wasn't there?
It was me against Joey Janela, another independent wrestler, someone who's also been in AEW, one of the craziest professional wrestlers in the world right now. Me versus Joey Janela in a 60-minute Iron Man match. Basically, it's however many falls, wins, pins, submissions you can get in an hour. It's my longest match I've ever done. Physically, the most brutal match I've ever done. It was unreal. You had to be there, but if you want to see it, there's free replay on YouTube right now.
How are you still moving at this moment? Like, you got a match tomorrow. You just had a whole hour-long Iron Man match like less than 6 days ago.
Yeah, it's just like, it's recovery, but it's also just like how much you want it.
Yeah.
The next day I wake up, it was hard to lift my head up off the pillow. My neck was hurting real bad. I get out of bed, my back is tight, my hips are really hurting. Your hips hurt, cause lower back problems, Your body's just kind of in pain, but I still went to the gym that day, because I want to get better. I know I went to war last night, but there's still work left on the table. You still got to get better. You got to keep working. So, yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's to prove yourself. It's to just keep working and to mentally prove to yourself like this is why I'm doing it. So, yeah, I love it. I love it. It's great.
And then, this was actually a submitted question.
Yeah, please.
Where did it go? Because, yeah, people are messy, but I like it. Would you ever turn on Christian for a championship match with Swerve?
Probably not.
Probably not.
You got to think about like longevity here. A title is cool, but you could lose a title the next day. You could lose the title at any time, any match you go in. But friendship, loyalty is number one. He skyrocketed my career in AEW and professional wrestling, period. He put so much eyes on me. He's helping me in so many ways. He's teaching me to be better. Why would I drop that and lose a friendship and a commitment to somebody over a championship that I could lose at any time? So, no, my answer is no.
What would you say that Christian has actually taught you in the ring? Because, when that first happened and, you really switched, a lot of people were like, why would you go with him? Like, he's going to change you, he's going to ruin you. But it seems like he's made you better. Like, how has he really made you better?
Overall presence, kind of just like knowing who you really are in the ring, and like, even before that, like even at Defy, I was starting to kind of learn who I was in the ring, but he just taught me like overall presence. Before, I'm a good guy, I'm a good kid, I follow by the rules, but now when you're with him, he'll do whatever to win. So, he's teaching me dirty tactics and whatnot, teaching me, things you're not really supposed to do, but things to do behind the referee's back and how to get the referee's attention and distract him and whatnot. We got so many people ringside, it's like, how to win the game, basically.
What would you say is one wrestling moment that lives rent-free in your head?
Wembley Stadium. Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people. It's unmatched. It was the biggest wrestling event of all time. You can't, like I said, there's only one first time. That's the first time, and I got to be there. I got to be a part of the show. So that lives rent-free in my head. Debuting in Japan lives forever in my head. I idolize a lot of Japanese wrestling and a lot of Japanese wrestlers. I idolize them. So being able to work in Japan, unreal. The AEW debut, that one forever. Winning the Defy champion. So many things. So many people that I've gotten to wrestle and just staring them across the ring. Things I'll never forget.
Who is Nick Wayne outside of the ring?
Not much of a change, really. Everything I do is to get better at wrestling. I have a nutritionist. I eat like 6 times a day. I'm trying to put on weight. I'm trying to get bigger so I can look better when I'm wrestling. I go to the gym every day, 3 hours a day, so I can look better when I'm wrestling. I'm studying wrestling when I'm at home so I can put it towards my work and get better at wrestling. So, you know, a lot of people think like you need an escape from wrestling sometimes, you know, like sometimes it's gonna fog up your brain and you need an escape. And it's like, it's my entire life, you know, like this is my work, this is my job, and I wanna get better. I wanna be one of the best to ever do it. I wanna be the best to ever do it. So it's like, I'm gonna do whatever I can of all these little inputs to put into one, and that's myself, to eventually, hopefully one day become the best. But if I ever do have any off time, you know, I have some friends at home. We like to go to the Mariners games, you know. But a lot of stuff is just how are you getting better at wrestling? You know, every day I wanna wake up being better that day than I was yesterday.
I love that. Question: do you still have a relationship of some sort with Darby Allin? Yeah.
He's there.
He's around.
He's there.
Fair enough. And then tomorrow is, well, today when we're recording this, it's Tuesday, but tomorrow you have Dynamite over at Angel of the Wings. What can we expect from Nick tomorrow?
You know, you never know. I'm not announced to do anything right now, but me and the patriarchy, you know, we show up whenever. I know Swerve's got a match. He's got a world title match. We have a pay-per-view match coming up with him in 2 weeks. I don't know.
Anything is possible.
You know, he's out there on his own. You know, there's 4 of us. You know, you never know where we're gonna show up.
I love that. And then I'm curious because, you know, obviously there's kids that look up to you. Like you said, you like really changed the game for people that are under 18 in wrestling. What would you say to them that look up to you and they want to be able to be in your position when they're 18?
Whenever they feel the time is right, do it. You know, like I feel like a lot of people think they have to, especially with wrestling, like, oh, I have to be an adult before I can start wrestling. No, you don't need to. You know, there's some schools they're not going to allow you to train because of your age. You know, it's a very scary thing. You know, if a kid gets hurt at your facility, you know, it's bad. You know, it's not a great like thing to happen. But if there's a place that's willing to take you and willing to teach you a safe way at your age to start and ignite your wrestling career, do it. You know, and if that's not possible, just keep this fire ignited in you until it is possible. You know, keep watching wrestling, keep falling in love with wrestling, go to shows, meet wrestlers, you know, ask them for their critiques, what you should do. You know, if you feel this is something that is possible and you feel that like this is a potential dream of yours or like you want to be a professional wrestler, do it. Yeah. There's nothing stopping you really. Like if you see the gate to success and that gate is professional wrestling, do it. There's really nothing stopping you.
And then I'm curious to know, if you could say anything to your father right now, what would you tell him?
I hope I'm making him proud, you know? I like to always think that I am. At least I try to think that I am, you know? I also like to try to think that he's there with everything I do. You know, like he's watching from afar, but the timing when he passed was very unfortunate. He passed the day before Father's Day, and he passed 2 months before I made my in-ring debut. So he never got to see me really wrestle on an audience show. But I like to think he's there with me for every match. You know, thankfully I've never gotten a serious injury in the ring, and I like to think it's because of him. You know, he's there protecting me. But I wish I could tell him that like this is all for you. You know, I took your last name, I'm taking your legacy because I want to carry it and I want to take it to bigger things. You know, I want to continue what you left for me. And I really just want to make him proud, and I love him so much. I thank him for everything he did for me, for everything he left for me, for everything he taught me. You know, I feel like he taught me everything I needed to know at the time, and he's like, all right, you know, shoot to the stars now. So I'm trying to shoot to the stars for him. Ultimately, this is all really for him.
I love that. Well, shoot, Nick, I'm so proud of you and
Thank
everything
you.
that you're doing.
Thank
I'm
you so
proud
much.
of the decisions that you're making. You know, like on the outside, it can be like, why? But with talking to you, it makes sense because it's like, okay, this is what you guys see in the ring. This is our performance. But there are a lot of things that you guys don't see, a lot of conversations that you're not privy to, and a lot of like practicing and bonding that you don't know about. And, you know, it just really seems like everything you're doing is really elevating you to that next level. Do you have a plan of how you are also going to continue just really paving your own lane while you're at AEW?
I like to achieve as much as I can in the time being, you know, like I love to win as many championships as possible. I love to do as many pay-per-views, try to main event pay-per-views. and really just try to showcase myself to the full ability. You know, I want to show who Nick Wayne is at his full potential, really is what it really is. Yeah, I want to achieve everything. I want to do everything there is to do in AEW. I want to do everything there is to do in this sport. You know, I want to be able to, one day, people can look back at my career and see that I've done everything and hopefully be successful in everything. That's really the main goal. But if we're speaking AEW, I want to do everything there is to do there.
Awesome. Okay, and then last thing I'm going to have you do is I'll have you look right into that camera right there. Let everybody know how they can watch AEW Dynamite tomorrow while they are right here at Angel of the Wings.
This one? This one? This one. Yes. Tomorrow, AEWTix.com is AEWTix.com, Angel of the Winds Arena in Everett, Washington. It's going to be crazy. Pop out. It's always a crazy show. We always appreciate the support, and let's get crazy in Everett tomorrow. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, shoot. Thank you, Nick.
Thank
I cannot
you.
wait to pull up on y'all tomorrow and see this in person. It is always an amazing sight when I'm at like a wrestling event. It's just, I just leave just feeling so energized. So I'm
Yes,
excited.
awesome. Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for coming on my show for the first time. And you guys definitely keep up with Nick Wayne and everything that he is doing as he takes the wrestling industry by storm. In the meantime, between time, you guys already know what I'm going to tell you to do. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. And of course, keep that energy high.